In this video, I'm going to give a few tricks on how to use HDDSCViewer. So I'm going to load a log file. It's an older log file. Pretty straightforward. You just navigate to your file and open it. So you can see a pattern here. This is actually a drive with a weak head. Only has two heads. 160 gigabyte drive. See the pattern clear over here. Sometimes you cannot see the pattern clear over here. You do have in the option to change the left panel resolution. See, that makes it worse. 3 point, that makes it kind of, you can kind of see it. 4 point, you kind of see, back to a pattern again. It kind of gets, you can kind of use that sometimes a little bit, but the big trick is over here in the main window. If we want to get this lined up so that we could measure to see, is it a 2-head, 3-head, 4-head, how many heads are in the drive, if there seems to be one bad, you can change the width of the window and you can see that's the wrong way. If you squeeze the window back this way, keep moving, and you can kind of see that we've got a pattern here. Now, you wouldn't be able to measure this very good. So there are a few other tricks yet. So we have main grid size. This is how many blocks are shown on the screen. Each one of these squares is a block. So 4K will be 4,000 blocks. Right now it's 64,000 blocks are shown all together. So let's just go down to 32,000 blocks and see what happens. Now we can get this probably to a measurable, that way kind of measurable, here to here. You can see, well, obviously it's pretty even if you wanted to hold something up to it and kind of compare. But ideally what you're trying to do is get a spot lined up straight enough that you can get a measurement off. See how many heads. Go to be able to see a pattern. If you have a larger drive, say this is only 160 gig, if you had a 1 or 2 terabyte drive, you might end up turning this main grid size up more. If I turn it up more, it just gets really spotty, really starts to not be able to show a pattern. So one of the other things is sometimes you can't get it with just one change. You have the option to do a main panel resolution change. I'm going to turn it to 4 point just to see what happens. Well, now I'm at 4 point. The panel resolution means it made the squares smaller. I've still got 128,000 squares, but now I'm back to being able to see a pattern. And let's drag the window again, if I can get a hold of it, and see that I can get the pattern to kind of straighten out, although again it's too wide to be able to measure. Anyway, this is the basic concept for being able to see a pattern using HDDSCViewer. If it wasn't so hard to grab a hold of the edge, it would be great. Like I said, you can see, you can straighten patterns out. Now, the other thing is, let's go back to default 64. Squish our window back down to about, hello, come on. Squish our window back down to about where it was when we started. Now you think this drive looks horrible. All this red, all those bad sectors. Well, that's just showing every place there is a bad sector, it overrides, that's the highest priority. So it says there's a bad sector here. If you want to see if there's any good data in any of those areas, and this works for everything from non-tried up to a bad sector, select highlight good data, and you can see it puts a little green dot in the middle of all the squares. So in every one of these, there was actually good data read. This, believe it or not, this is, I believe a 99.5% recovery for sector wise. So it looked a lot worse than it is when you do that. When you show that, you can see that there's all these little, the good data has been read here. And now, to show that even more, I'm going to turn our main grid size way up, and you can see now, instead of just having a pattern of really solid, a solid red, it's now broken up. Here's a bad spot. Here is a bad spot. Here is a bad spot. And there's even good data in that little bad spot. So if I go way out of my way and turn this up, how much can I turn it up? This might get slow. You can see that little tiny dots, they're now separated out quite a ways, showing you that the bad sectors are far apart. There's not very many of them. That is a good way to be able to see a visual representation of what's going on. It's not always easy, but those are the settings you would play with. And like I said, when you're trying to find a pattern, drag the width on the side. The height doesn't do anything. It's the same as scrolling, but dragging that width can sometimes show you the pattern that you're looking for that you can't see otherwise. Another trick I would like to show is that if you're trying to figure out where a spot is in the log, click on it. You'll see it highlights it with a little dot in the middle. But down here, you see in hex representation the start and the end of that block. That makes it so that you could go and look in the log and find the area that this range exists in. Just helps if you're if you know how to manually look through a log, or you're trying to find a spot to see what's going on. It's a little trick. I almost forgot to mention that if you want to have HDDSCViewer running and constantly updating with your log file, you have the AutoUpdate feature, which once you've chosen the log file, if you have HDDSuperClone running, the HDDSuperClone updates the log file every 30 seconds. If you want to be on top of that, really on top of it, you can choose 5 seconds. Anyway, you have a choice of update intervals. The default is off, but if you want it to auto update so you can keep track of what's going on without having to reload the file, then you would just turn the auto update on to something like, say, 30 seconds, or if you're really impatient, you'd choose 5 seconds.